right, I believe that you do some of this in Math 3. You do not do ellipses, but you do circles. I'm pretty sure. So if you've recently had Math 3, you may be in luck. If you have not had Math 3 in a while, there's a chance you forgot. Alright, so, for standard form of a circle, we've got x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals the radius squared. HK is your center. Notice that the signs are different. You got a negative h here, you got a positive h here. So it's because whenever you're shifting things up, down, left, right, if it's inside of the parentheses, it goes the opposite direction. So it's related to that idea. So if you have a negative 3 here, you'll have a positive 3 for your center. Correct. Yes. R is your radius. X and Y will always still be in your equations as the variables. So the first things we're going to do are we're going to graph some circles that are given to us. So the first thing I need to know is my center, which is, in this case, going to be at 3, negative 4. So I will go to the point 3, negative 4. I will put a dot there for my center of my circle. What would the radius of the circle be? It's going to be 2. Very good, because this is r squared. If you want the radius, you got to take the square root of it. So you're just going to go left 2, right 2, up 2, down 2, and draw in a circle as best you can. Circles are not the easiest to draw, but make sure they go through those points. Okay. Everybody okay here? Alright, so next thing we're going to look at doing is finding the radius and the center from the equation. So, Troy, what would the center of number 1 be? 3, negative 1. What about the radius? 8. Yes. Because this is r squared, so you got to take the square root of it. Okay. Maggie, what about the center for number 2? It's a little trickier because there's nothing over here with the x. What could we add there inside of the parentheses that would not change that value? 0. So it's going to be a 0. And then what's the y coordinate? 9. What about that radius? Also a little bit tricky. Square root of 14. Actually, no, that one will break down, so you would just leave it. Okay. Let's see. Alexa, what's the center for number 3?
3 and 0.
Perfect. 3, 0. Radius. Anybody know the square root of 482? 884. I think it's 24. Is it 24? 22. Okay. Questions? Okay. These are pretty straightforward. You just have to know that formula there. Oh, there was one more. Lee, what would our center be for number 4? Perfect. And Connor, what's our radius? What? What'd you say? It will simplify, but square root of 24 is okay. That will break down into 4 times 6. So you might see it as 2 root 6. I think your homework is from Delta Math tonight, and I think Delta Math is going to give you whole numbers because it's going to ask you to graph it, if I remember correctly. But could be wrong. Okay? Another thing we need to be able to do is to write the equation if we know the radius in the center. So if we have, like, for example, 1, we would just have x minus 3 squared plus y minus 4 squared equals the radius squared, which would be 25 in this case. Liam, what would the equation be for number 2? Perfect. Lovely. And Lennon, what about number 3? Perfect. Okay, questions? All right, so we're going to be looking at all of the conic sections. Last night you guys had that video with that super cool guy that was showing you the cones and cutting those cones to show you what the circle, the ellipse, the parabola, and the hyperbola all kind of like where they come from and why they're related. That is the reason this unit is all together and why it's called conic sections. So we will be looking at all of these, and their equations are going to look very similar. So one thing we need to be able to do is be able to pick out which one would be a circle. So it's pretty easy if it's already in standard form like the ones that we just saw. But a lot of times they're not going to be in standard form. They may look more like this, just a string of x's and y's and squares and whatnot. So for it to be a circle, if an equation's highest degree x term is x squared and its highest degree y term is y squared, and they are both positive, then the equation is either a circle or an ellipse. If the coefficients in front of x squared and y squared are the same, then you're going to have a circle. If they are different, you have an ellipse. We will talk about ellipses on Monday. So we'll talk about them there. But if you have the same number in front of both your x squared and your y squared, then you're dealing with a circle for these. So let's do a little completing the square review, because you have to be able to complete the square to be able to do these problems. Okay. So when we complete the square, we go through a process of trying to write this as an equation where we've got like something squared equals a number over here. That's what our goal is. So what we have to do is we have to turn x squared plus 8x plus blank into something that can be factored like this. So the first thing you want to do is move the 7 over to the other side. So you will have a 12 right here. And then I have put a plus blank on both sides. And so our goal here is to get something that has been like square double squared so that it will factor to be something squared here. So obviously you'll have an x that goes right here. To get the number that goes right here, you're going to divide that middle term right there by 2. Because if you have a square double square, that 8x is your double. If you want to know what number was right here, you got to undouble it. You got to divide it by 2. So that will give us a 4, and it will be positive. This sign will always match that sign right there. And then, but we can't just factor this because x plus 4 squared does not equal x squared plus 8 squared. We also have to think about what x plus 4 squared equals. It would be x squared plus 8x plus 16. So to get the number that goes here, you're going to take this number and raise it to the second power. So we need to add a 16 to this side. if we add 16 to the left side, we have to also add 16 to the right side as well. And so what we would have, let me erase one, is x plus 4 squared equals 28. And then really this is as far as we're going to have to go for circles, but if you're solving that, now you can square root both sides. So x plus 4 will equal plus or minus the square root of 28. 28 is 4 times 7. So we could make that x plus 4 equals plus or minus 2 root 7. And then we would need to subtract that 4. So x would equal negative 4 plus or minus 2 square root of 7. Okay, questions? Let's do another to practice this some more before we get into doing this for circles. So, a note right here, you can not complete the square with a number in front of your, in this case, y squared. Okay, so you can't complete the square when you have a number in front of that squared term. So what you need to do is divide it off. So we will begin this by dividing everything by 2. You have to do this even if those numbers are not divisible by 2. In this case, fortunately, they are divisible by 2, but if that was like a 17 instead of a 24, we would still have to divide by 2, in which case completing the square is going to be difficult for that one. So we'll have y squared minus 3y plus 12 equals 0. And if we are completing the square on this, we're going to move the 12 over to the other side. So we'll have y squared minus 3y plus blank equals negative 12 plus blank. Okay, our goal is to get this to be like y minus something squared here equal to a number over here on the other side. This one is more difficult than the last problem. What makes it more difficult? Right there, when we divide by 2, 3 is not divisible by 2. You want to go fractions, do not do decimals. So that gives us 3 halves. Right, so if 3 is our double, we have to undouble it. We have to divide it by 2. We get 3 halves right here. So to get what needs to be added right here, you would square, double square. So y squared, we square this, we'll get the 3y. We need to square the last term, so we're raising that to the second power. How do I raise a fraction to the second power? Square top and bottom, so that's just going to be 9 over 4, which means I get 9 over 4 over here as well. And so then I've got to do negative 12 over 1 plus 9 over 4, meaning I got to multiply by 4 on top and bottom. Negative 48 over 4 plus 9 over 4 is going to give me negative 39 over 4, I think. And so now that you have completed the square, you can square root both sides. You will get y minus 3 halves equals plus or minus the square root of negative 39 over 2, because square root of 4 is 2. And then you'll move this over. So y equals 3/2 plus or minus I root 39 over 2, which could be written -3 plus or minus I root 39 over 2. Okay, good news is we don't have to do completing the square all the way to deal with circles. We just have to be able to do the first part of it. So let's look at a circle, because we've only got like, what, 10 minutes. Get out of here at 20. No, we get out of here at 2:10. Okay, we got 20 minutes. Good. All right. So, if I'm given this equation and asked to find the radius in the center, I've got to put this into that standard form of a circle. So, what I'm going to have to do is I've got to complete the square twice for this, because I need this to look like x plus something squared plus y plus something squared equals a radius squared here. That's what I want this to look like for this problem. So to do that, I'm going to group my x's together. So I'll have x squared minus 4x, and I'm going to go ahead and put a plus blank right there. And then I'll have y squared plus 5y plus blank. And that will equal, I'm going to move this -5 over here to the other side, so it will become a positive 5. And I'm going to put 2 plus blanks over here on the right-hand side. Okay, so what I've done here, highlighter, the x squared and the 4x, I put those together right here. The y squared and the 5y, I put those together right here. And then I moved this -5, I moved it over here to this side. So that's where everything comes from. So for these, we'll group our x's, group our y's, move any coefficients or any constant terms over to the other side. So I need to complete the square here. So -x squared minus 4x plus blank, I need to divide that number right there by 2. I will get a -2 right here. Then I need to raise that to the second power. 2 squared is 4 there. If I add a 4 to the left-hand side, I must also add that 4 over here to the right-hand side as well. Everybody okay there? Then I'm going to do the same thing with the y's. So I'm going to divide by 2 here, which that does not go evenly, so I'm just going to leave it 5/2. And then I'm going to raise that to the second power, which would be 25 over 4. So I got to add that to the other side as well. So just like some scratch work over to the side, 9 plus 25 over 4. You're going to have to multiply by 4 on top and bottom. So you're going to have 36 over 4 plus 25 over 4. You're going to get 61 over 4 as your number there. And you're not solving this. It's not an equation where you're like solving for the x or solving for the y. So you have now put this in standard form. So the center would be at 2 -5/2. And the radius would be square root of 61 over 4, which could be 61 square root of 61 over 2 if you would like. Okay, questions? let's try another one. Now, I told you at the beginning you cannot complete the square when you have a number in front of your x squared or your y squared. You have that here. So the first thing you want to do on a problem like this is divide off that coefficient. So you have to divide everything here by 2. Whether it will go into 2 or not, you still have to divide it by 2. Now, fortunately, and I think most of the problems you're going to see, it will go into those numbers evenly here. So I've got x squared plus y squared minus 2x plus 6y minus 9 equals 0. Okay, so we'll have x squared minus 2x plus blank. So we're grouping those x's together. I'm going to put some extra parentheses there just to keep it straight. And then y squared plus 6y plus blank. And then I'm taking that 9 and moving it over to the other side. So I get 9 plus blank plus blank. Everybody with me here? All right, we need this to look like this. So to get the number that goes here, we're going to divide by 2, which will give me a -1. And then to get the number that goes up here, we raise that to the second power, so that'll be a +1. If I add a 1 on that left-hand side, I must also add the 1 on the right-hand side. Same thing over here. I'm going to divide by 2 to get the number that goes right here, so I'll have a 3. To get the number that goes in that blank, I'm going to raise to the second power, so it'll be 9. So I must add a 9 to the other side as well. So that will give me 19 over here as my total. So Abby, what would the center of that be? Great. And Monica, what's the radius? Square root of 19. Okay, questions? I'm going to skip the last one because I'm going to give you a minute or two to work on your assignment. I know we don't have time to do the whole thing, or even close to it, but I would like for you to do a few problems. All right, and you guys are here. Let's see. I'll cut that back to. Okay. So for these, it's not letting me see. Let me go over here. Oh, I need to change the date on this too. It says it's late. So for this, it's going to give you a circle. It's going to ask you to write the equation. So from the graph, you've got to pull the center. So the center would be 5, 6 on this one. And then just count your radius as 4, and then write your equation. No, I think you should be good there. When you do like to the second power, do shift 6, and it'll raise you up to the second power on those. So you'll do those, and then you'll have some that are given it like this. So you're going to have to complete the square like we did on those last two to find the center and the radius there. This will not be due until Monday, so you can get that to me anytime before Monday. There. So try to do a problem or two before we go because we still got about 10 minutes.